welcome back. Today we've got another amazing discussion with a wonderful woman, a friend of mine, Jannah Dryden, who is the founder of J Create. She will walk us through how she went from being a photographer to launching a fintech company with no technical background, whilst managing a family, multiple relationships, divorces and marriages, and every single thing in between. It's one of those journeys that we probably will all find a little bit familiar in places, and we can definitely, there will be elements that will resonate with either yourself or people that you know. I hope you enjoy this discussion with Jannah Dryden. Okay, so we're back for another episode of the Founders Lounge, and I get to speak to, I feel like I keep introducing all my friends because this is the best way to do this. I have the pleasure of chatting today with Jannah Dryden, who is the founder of J Create and has been involved in some other businesses that I've also been working with you on. So I really look forward to talking about those and taking us on the journey. But aside from that introduction, welcome, Jannah, to this online discussion that we're going to have about, first of all, this is your life, and also this is your business journey. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Peta, and lucky you for having all of the friends around you that are these wonderful, interesting women,
yes,
and listening to all of them as well. It's what a very lucky life you lead.
It is. I get very excited, mostly because I get to create work around these people who, first of all, on the same wavelength, are my people, and then we get to also, hopefully, which we've talked about a lot, create some sort of sustainable venture on the back of that we can all live the life that we hope to be living. So, can you please explain to us what is J Create, first of all, and then we'll go into some of the other ventures. But what are you doing right now? What does Jannah do?
J Create.
What does Jannah do?
I started J Create. Sorry, that would be close to 12 years ago. And I actually distinctly remember my daughter, she was about 3 years old at the time, and she thought J Create was a swear word because you'd only hear it come up every now and then. And sorry, this is completely off topic, but I have to share it. And I was laying in bed next to her one night, and she goes, J Create. I was like, what? And she goes, I'm sorry, I said the bad word. And I'm like, what? And she goes, I said the bad word. And I was like, oh, she actually thought it was the swear word. So it was obviously a word that was being thrown around in the household every now and then, but didn't really get talked about. So she didn't get a huge amount of context. So there you go. It's not a swear word.
Not a swear word. So what is it?
J Create. So I started with J Create Photography. I did a school-based traineeship in photography many moons ago. Fast forward, having children, and I decided to pick up the camera again and started a business around that. So shooting photography. And now
anything in particular? Like, is there a certain style of photography that you do?
I started out with the desire to do weddings and portraits, which I think is kind of everyone's idea of doing that. And then realized that I needed to be shooting every single day to get my skills back up to the level that they needed to be able to do that. Right. So I started shooting real estate day to day, doing rentals, and getting my head around that. And today I'm actually a specialist in real estate and construction and commercial photography. It just happened that way. And I don't shoot weddings and portraits anymore because that's a lot of weekend work. Yes. And which is quite difficult with children as well. So it just kind of morphed into that. I do really love construction. I love buildings. I love straight lines. I love construction. That's probably, my main love now.
So it's not a new business. It's something that you've been doing for a little while, but you've been able to manage to continue it, obviously, while you had young children. Your kids are getting older now, so you still like that lifestyle where you can slot it in and around commitments and family and that sort of stuff. Is that a big thing for you to be able to do that?
It is. I think the reason I probably went into self-employment in the first place is my ex-husband was a fisherman, and he would go away on the boat a lot, so he'd be gone for long periods of time. So I had the ability to kind of work in that time. And then when he was back, obviously he wanted to spend as much time with the family as possible. So then I could scale things down, scale things up as that was happening. Then it got really busy. It was a little bit more difficult to do that. Yes. that stage, the girls, so they were quite little. So, you know, there's a lot of long day care in there as well. So I was able to get long days, especially when I got divorced. Then I had a lot more hours in the day and the ability to work around that as well. Now that they're a little bit older, I do a lot of much more running around. So I guess having the flexibility to do that, as I slot out, you know, particular times during the week that I have to do that run. But I do enjoy that flexibility. Yeah.
I think that's one of those things. I mean, you know, we're both parents, but being able to add on or create your own work in the timeframes that you can fit it in. But a lot of people probably would avoid that because they're not really sure about the business side. So whether you're a photographer or you do any other creative pursuit on the side, how did you tackle learning the business part of being a photographer? Did you do a course? Did you just pick it up? Did you have good advisors? What did you do? How did you work that part out?
I was desperate, and it was very I guess, yeah, when I was married, obviously it was side money, I guess, that we would use to go on holidays. It wasn't we didn't rely on that. Then when the divorce happened, it was in a very, very different situation. And
so it became your primary income and you needed to make it work. So what did you do about the business part? Like
business, I worked out how much I needed to earn every week in order to be able to, and I'm not a counter. I was just like, this is the number that I would like to earn every week that would make me feel good, and then work out how many available time slots I had in the week in order to be able to do that, which then gave me my base price of every time I go out to do a slot, it needs to earn X amount of dollars, $250, or I can't do it. And then what value can I create within that hour or that 2 hours that would be that sort of value. So that's where I kind of put it at. And then I knew I needed to
engineered. You knew what you needed and you thought, what do I need to do to achieve those goals?
And I knew if I was hitting my 7 to 10 shoots a week, then I'd be hitting that target or close to that target. And then I just have to go out and find that 7 to 10. And then the easiest ways of doing that is obviously to go and get the repeat business rather than trying to get 7 to 10 new customers a week. I didn't really have my head around that, but then going out and getting that repeat business, so getting those customers and keeping them really, really happy. And that was in the real estate and all in the commercial game to be able to do that.
What about invoicing, books, bookkeeping, accounting? Was that you? Did you work that out or did you have some help?
I worked that out. I was doing a little bit of that with so previous business, and I was married as well. He was a fisherman, but there was some books and accounting that was involved with that as well. So I would help out with that side of things. And then we started a business called prawnsales.com while we were still together as well. So I had a bit of a background in that anyway, that I was already had learnt a lot of it. And then, so Xero is quite easy to get your head around. I did get some advice from a bookkeeper as well. It was just showing me, how to slot things in and invoice. It was quite, this was quite a while ago as well, but it's very, very easy once you get your head around it.
I agree. And I think, so Xero is an online accounting software, which is quite easy to input, set up with your own business. So for someone starting out first time, it's probably something, there's a lot of tools out there, would you agree, to help you get going, and it shouldn't be a blocker, although sometimes a lot of the time it is on not knowing how to do all those things in the beginning to set up to be a professional business more than just a side hustle or a bit of a hobby, how to sort of scale it up to look more professional. Because I'm sure that when you go and get to the commercial work, you want to appear as a professional, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think having GST is a big component as that as well. If you're not charging GST, kind of like, why is that? Are you doing enough work? And then they, it's very intuitive. And I think that, depending on whether it's a service-based business or whether you're selling products and setting that up as well, by having a good bookkeeper to help you just get yourself started, and then you can manage it yourself.
Great advice. I like it. So we met not through J Create. You applied to come on one of the Startup Catalyst trips, whereas I took the group of female founders to London, which was pretty much, 4 years ago now, we were getting ready to go. I know that because it was getting, coming closer to June. Actually, no, we did the end of the year one. Was it November?
It was November, going to December because it was cold. It started snowing.
December 2017. Yes, it did. And you applied with a different business. What business was that?
That was called Album Registry. So at the time of the split, and I was like, all right, I need to earn some money, and then wanted to diversify my revenue streams at the same time. Was shooting a lot of weddings at that point. As I said before, a lot of weekend work, and having people look after the kids. I was wearing out my welcome.
Yes. And it happens, right?
It does. You can't just rely on people, parents and friends to look after them all the time. It didn't sit well with me. So I was already doing the legwork by being on the ground, and I knew that in order to be able to kind of, I guess, increase your earnings from those days, you had to sell some sort of print product or add-ons. So I tried to sell albums, wedding albums, and no one would buy them, or they'd say, yes, we'll buy it after the wedding, and not get around to doing it, or they'd say it's too expensive. And it's not really something that was front of mind. I think for a lot of people, we'll get around to doing it later.
Yes.
And so
I've been one of those. I've been one of those people. You have a look and you're like, I might buy some things, but not. Then you don't.
Yeah. And it's expensive.
So what did you? It is.
It is.
You obviously came up with something to fit.
I did. I went out running one day and I was like, well, how do I overcome these objections? They're the same objections that everyone gets. And I was like, oh, what if everybody else bought it for them and became a gift? And then the transaction happened, before or on the day of the wedding. And then that way I'd get paid and then wouldn't have to worry about the deferring. And then I'm like, oh, this is genius. I'm a genius. And so I ran back home and I set up this dodgy PayPal page, which was basically I set them out. And then a friend of mine was getting married, in a couple of weeks' time or something. And I pitched the idea to her and she said, oh, I think that's amazing. That's beautiful. I was shooting the wedding for free anyway. So I thought, this is a good way to get a little bit of income. And Emma's, she's tight. She's tight. She's still got a good dollar. And she loved the idea. And I actually sold my first wedding album for more than I had it listed for on the price list. And the transaction already happened before the day.
Amazing.
Yes. So that was pretty incredible. I think the trust was probably already there. Like the PayPal page it didn't look very professional or whatever. But
you had an idea. You set something up, tested it, had a customer, they used it and they bought it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, I've got to keep this secret and I'm not going to tell anyone about it because, I've just hit the jackpot and whatever. And then a friend of mine said to me, why don't you, create a platform where everyone can use it? And I was like, why would they do that? They can just set it up themselves like I'm doing. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, that's not a terrible idea. So it wasn't a terrible idea. Hence, that's when Album Registry began, and it was a journey and an idea that I had absolutely no idea what was coming for me because I was used to selling prawns or selling services, but I had no idea what I was doing was starting a software company at that time. So, wow, what a learning experience that came after that.
So what did you do? So you're a photographer. You don't have let's say you're not a developer, not a computer developer. You had a website. So that's different. Everyone can create a website. I mean, we can all spin something up and make it look a little, a bit decent. Of course, we're not, unless you're a professional designer, that's where you get the premium, but we can all spin something up. But building a tech product would require some skills.
That were well out of, I actually thought, I was like, it's just a website. Like I actually thought I was just building a website. And then I had this, that was about the time that you would just start getting those kind of spammy emails that would come in from someone over in India saying, I can build you this app or whatever. Yes. And so I actually replied to it and went down that road. I think I get like 8 or 9 of those a day now. So highly recommend not doing that. But he actually did deliver some of the work, but it just.
So you engaged an external developer from overseas because that's all you knew. That was the pathway. Now, good or bad, a lot of people do start this way because they realize sometimes you just need to get something going. And I think you need to look at yourself and go, I got something going, whether it was probably not the right pathway, you still got something up. And maybe if you didn't get that email, you wouldn't have even started that journey.
This is true. And it was cheap. And I look back on it and it was absolutely the right road to take. If I had have known that it was the right road to take, I probably would have been a little less dramatic about it.
Yes.
Because in my mind, I'm like, things work. Like I've never done something that had not worked before. And so I wanted web pages and then this has to happen and this happened. And it just didn't all work together. So all I got was this series of landing pages and screenshots. And I had organized this launch night, and I'd had all my photographer mates come to this launch night, and oh my God, the website wasn't even live yet. And I was just like mortified.
Was it a physical event you got them to come to talk about Album Registry and hoping that they would use it within their own photography business? Is that where you were heading?
All the wedding photographers in Cairns.
Okay.
So they all came together and we put on this launch night. And then I remember one of them going, oh, he looked on his phone and he goes, it's not active. And I was like,
did you get the error? Did you get the error number?
Error. So at that point, I was just like, oh my God. I think that was probably the first time I had an anxiety attack, actually. Around that period, I remember collapsing on the kitchen floor going, oh my God, people are going to find out that I'm an absolute fraud because it doesn't work. But I got the series of landing pages. Everyone was into it. They were like, wow, this is amazing. Yes, we're interested. I had like
external developer launched, wasn't live. You ended up what did you do next to make sure, because you obviously wanted to make this work. You were looking for something to supplement your traditional business. Yeah. So did you find a developer in the end?
I did. In the end, where was the end? No, I think finding a developer was always a problem, all the way from start to finish. I just got better at being able to speak the language. I think I don't know how many iterations that I had. Ended up bringing it back to Australia and then trying to get somebody else local. And then whenever somebody else would pick it up to try and make it work, it would error and they'll say, okay, well, we'll build it. And then they would build it and it wouldn't work. And then you try and pass it on to somebody else to get it working. And then, just money kind of going out the doorway. But I eventually got something that was working.
I think you're talking it down. I know that it was working. So let's fast forward to the product. It's up and live. What did it deliver to your customers?
I went over to Perth to an AIPP event and launched it over there.
Which was a photography event, was that?
Yeah, Australian Institute of Professional Photography, which isn't around anymore. But that's where I met like the industry partners and everyone that would actually give me a leg up in the industry as well. So I kind of went over there completely green, launching this product, met lots of people. It didn't work, but I made it look like it worked.
Yes, this is what you do. This is the thing. So this is what I want to
It didn't work in automation. So it worked, but it did not work in automation. So something could happen and then I would have to manually go into the back end and then something could pop up. And then
but the thing is, this is the MVP. This is what we say is get the minimal viable product or working prototype up. So you can put it in front of a customer and go, this is what I have, in the hope that they sign up, use it, utilize it, work through it so that you can see people using it, then build it out to the specific specifications of customers. So what you did was actually textbook, but we often scramble. It was on point, but we often scramble through thinking, I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so unprepared for this. I'm underqualified. I have imposter syndrome, but you know what? So does everybody. And the more times you share that this is the path, this was your pathway that got you to launching a product that customers liked, used, and paid for, is super important. So you went there. I love how you threw yourself into the industry with confidence in the product.
That's where I got the feedback, because and I think it's important to note that yes, that was the MVP, and I'm lucky that it wasn't working. I'm lucky that I didn't build it in the way that I thought it was going to operate, because once I actually got it out, people were like, I don't want to just use it for albums, because at that point I was saying everyone can buy a page, it was a price per page model.
So you built differently with customers in mind.
That's right. And then they were like, but what if I want to use it for a canvas? Or what if I want to use it for my service? And then I was like, wow, I've built this thing.
With an assumption of knowing what people want. Yeah.
And so I was in a bit of a pickle then, because the way that it was kind of all adding up. And so it was simply changing the word from page to gift. And then people could give numerous amounts of gift towards it. So just by changing a singular word, the whole business model kind of changed overnight then, which was awesome to be able to do that. Yeah.
So you went and I obviously knew the journey of your aim was to get bigger partners, so photographers tapping into those networks so that they could access and hopefully add your product to their suite of services? Was that the aim, to grow it that way?
It was, so the initial industry partners was connecting with album manufacturers. So they would say, okay, well, which is obviously going to increase their business as well. So for them to kind of refer it on and suggest it to their customers as well. So that was huge.
And when you're building something like this, you often don't make money. So how did you supplement? Like you're still a mum. You have you're a family person with needs. How did you keep cash flow going to supplement and support the growth of this new thing?
I was shooting. Yep. And all of the photography and all the shooting was going into that.
So you had a brand new thing on the side, which you needed to give a lot of mental and physical attention to, but you still needed to keep that income coming in. How did you manage the time split with all of that?
Not very well.
So did you have a strategy or?
I was very strange. Look, I got to a point where I wasn't managing very well. I was trying to do too many things at once and not doing anything at all very well.
What are some things that you noticed? Like have you got some like key identifiable things that happen that you go, oh, hang on a minute, I think I'm a bit out of balance here. Shall I rein it in? Or does it get to a point where it goes a bit too far and then you think, hang on, I need to do something? So walk me through the process, because I believe you know yourself well enough now to identify what those things are.
I think I reached a level of exhaustion, and then I thought this magical thing appeared where I was approached by some local investors.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I'm saved.
Here comes the money. Here comes the team. Here comes the team.
It wasn't money, it was help. I was like, there's so much of this I do not understand, and then especially around legals, around money, around, oh my God, there's transaction fees that I really didn't take into account when things go through the platform. Like, who's going to wear that? I'm going to have to wear that. How do I wear that? And like, how am I actually going to make money out of this unless it hits this kind of scale that I need? And so I was getting a little bit of press coverage at the time, and I was approached by some local investors here in Cairns. It's a very small town. My dad actually taught the guy at school.
So small town mentality to an extent, but really it's promoted as a very, it's a global tourist destination, Cairns in Queensland. But in reality, it's a small town if you look at it from the business landscape, or if you've grown up there.
Yeah. Everyone knows everyone, like most of the businesses as well. So, look, I went in for a meeting. It was lovely. I felt, I was like, oh, wow. It felt magical, almost too good to be true. And he's like, look, I'm interested in investing. I can help. I can help take over that financial side of things. And then he brought his sister in as well to work with the business. And I'd never heard anything about investment at that point. I didn't even know that investment was an option. I didn't know what I was doing was a startup. I had no idea about a term sheet. I had no idea about shares. I had like none of it. So I've kind of been thrown in there, and kind of looking back, I wish I had have known a little bit more, because obviously went ahead and I made some mistakes around that. But I learned the hard way. But I didn't want to have hard conversations at that point either, which I should have had in the beginning, because I kind of got myself.
Like, what sort of things? When you say that, what do you mean? When you say hard conversations, did you know you needed to have them, or you weren't even aware at that point? I mean, now in hindsight, you can look and go, "Hang on a minute."
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about money, and I think money has.
You just wanted it, but you didn't want to talk about it.
It was more, I wanted the help, and then they would talk about money, and I didn't. I think I had a blocker there with greed, and I didn't want to be like, no, I want this much and you can only have this. I wasn't confident in that space at all. So I was kind of like, just take whatever's going. You guys know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And it was just, I wanted to avoid having that conversation so much that I wasn't proactive in that. Yep. Because I was on my back foot of desperation, of needing help, very needy, instead of on the front foot of being proactive.
As in, hang on, I've got something to offer here. Would you like to come on my journey? Because I'm going this way. You were like, which way are we going? I've got something.
No, that's right. Somebody else take the reins because I've got no fucking idea what the hell is going on. I just know I'm struggling. And again, these are all, you look back and you're like, oh yeah, that, this is the path.
Yep.
This could have done it a lot less dramatically.
Yes. So did the help come, Jannah? Obviously there was money offered. You were keen on getting some backup resources, support. What happened next? Did you get the support that you were looking for?
Yes, got the support. We did a pitch to a group of investors. The support was having this other lady who was working in the business with me as well. We came to the decision that we would take Album Registry over to Vegas to an event over there, the WPPI, the Wedding Portrait Photographers International Convention over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of got me kick-started. I was like, wow, okay, yeah. We had some help with the tech again, getting the tech working, having a rebuild there, which was good. It was ugly, but it worked. Yep. And we're taking it over there to launch, which was really exciting. And there was investment coming. I felt very secure. But it got time to leave to go over, and the money hadn't come through yet.
Mm-hmm. This was to go to Vegas. Yep.
To go to Vegas. But I didn't want to lose the momentum. No one wanted to lose the momentum.
Yes.
And I said, I'll put the money up to get us over there and to do everything. And I was very fortunate to have a property settlement from my previous divorce there. So I put the money forward with the agreement that it was going to come back to me.
Yep.
Yeah. So that
Did you get to go to Vegas?
I went to Vegas. We went business class to Vegas.
Oh wow, that's that's fancy for a founder.
It's very fancy. But it was, that's what she wanted to do, and I'm like, well, it's not always up to me. I was like, we could probably go economy, but she doesn't fly economy, and I was like, okay, well, it's not just about me anymore. There's other people to consider. Okay, we go business class. It was amazing, business class. I will probably never go on business class again.
You never know. Hey, we never know.
It was a memory, I can tell you that much. So we went over there, had a great time. Again, met lots of industry partners over there. Awesome relationships.
So you and the business the new investor / partner went together, business class to Vegas, selling the product. Did you get a lot of interest?
Yes, lots of interest over there.
So you're getting pretty excited, like, yes, this is happening. I've got this new pathway. Then you come back to Australia, and obviously that's where the hard work begins, right? Often you go and get all the momentum, potential product sales opportunities, and you come back to deliver. Yeah.
Yeah. And
how did that bit go?
Not very good. It got to 7 months down the track. We had another build underway. It was failing. We had a company in Sydney that was doing that. It was over $90,000 had been spent at that point, and that was out of my money. I didn't have a term sheet, and no investment had come through, and the relationship had broken down. I didn't feel respected in that, and it was very unfortunate. But I ended up deciding that if that level of respect of that relationship wasn't there, then I couldn't continue with the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I pulled the pin on that. So yes, it was a big lesson there as well. Huge
lessons, which I think that probably may not have even landed at the time, but maybe afterwards that you might have looked back and gone, well, hang on a minute. Like you've mentioned today even, that you would have looked at, have those hard conversations around finances earlier, no matter how much we need and want, and really sometimes quite desperate for that backup support, not even just the financial support, but even just the mental load, being able to have a conversation and throw ideas around with someone. We can really be getting to a corner sometimes and want that more than anything, and then settle for terms that aren't as favorable as we'd like. But having those conversations early. So what would you say? Obviously it didn't work, which was devastating for you in the business, but I know that you've got a lot of lessons. You took a lot of lessons from that. and have since reflected on that. But what would you say to someone else who's in that same position? What would be like some things that you could say to look out for?
Look, I think a big one is don't be making decisions when you're in that level of desperation.
Yep. But what about backup people around you? Could you have had some conversations with somebody else maybe to say, what do you think of this? I've been offered this. I know obviously in small towns and the ecosystem was quite different then.
Very different. There was no ecosystem then. Yeah. Look, I think it's much easier these days. You definitely get yourself connected into an ecosystem, into a startup, get yourself a mentor. Look, I asked
where would you find one now? So if someone was kicking off now and you said, look, find those things, like what is, like you said, connecting, what does it mean by connecting into the ecosystem as a founder?
Oh, geez, I think go to your local university is probably a good place to start there as well. I think they run entrepreneurship programs, I believe. I mean, that's a good place to start and Googling it. But I think business networks around. I know in Cairns, they've got the Young Entrepreneurs Project. They've got out at the Ideas Lab out at JCU as well. I'm just connecting in there. There's programs that you can do, which are the accelerators, incubate. There's a lot out there to do all of those steps in a less dramatic way
and get some feedback and tune in. Look, because I know that there are even regionally all around the world, there are hubs, whether it's co-working hubs, there's events, but even now online, you can dial in to a lot of these sort of events or discussions that happen to just listen and observe, ask questions. And as you would have found as well, even finding mentors that fit you and the environment and maybe the industry that you're in might have been something that you'd have liked as well, who understood the creative industry plus then business as well. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, it was actually a fintech that I created in the end. Like,
yes.
It was working in there, but which is hilarious because I'm like the worst person at counting. But so I created a fintech at the end of the day, which would have been the space for me to really connect into, looking back on that as well.
So with that, the first investor didn't work out, but you didn't stop you. You kept going. You went and built. You continued to build.
I did.
And grow.
Yes, I managed to bumble along, doing the pretending that everything was okay for about 18 months. When eventually I kind of had a crash and then ended up connecting into a small, it was a space here in Cairns, and I kind of went in there one day to do Toastmasters or something, and then I was like, oh, and then I connected into, that's when I ended up on that trip.
Yep.
And it was, I think I had about 20 minutes until close or something like that. I quickly put this application.
Yeah.
And I ended up, getting accepted to go on this trip over to London. So, and that is when my startup journey, I was like, oh, wow. So this is the thing. Wow. This is the thing.
But I think what's awesome is with all the chaos and the hard, the difficulties that you faced, for you as the founder from Cairns, to think, oh my goodness, this is actually a thing. There's people all around the world doing this exact same thing. I'm not further, I'm not behind, I'm in the game. I think it's that reality that everybody is doing this on some level everywhere. And I noticed that everybody on that trip had the same penny drop moment. It's like, oh, wow. I'm not just, Jannah and Cairns doing this thing, bumbling along. This is actually, everybody comes up with the same struggle. Everybody makes those early mistakes. Everybody struggles to find tech. And then when they do, and then there's still challenges, and then there's funding, and then there's hard conversations. So it was really nice for me to see that moment, because I've obviously had that insight for quite a while, to then see everyone else go, yes, of course, it's just the same. You just happen to be sitting up in Cairns on your own, unfortunately. But I think that the thing is now it's definitely changing and growing, but everyone's still going to go through that internal dialogue to start with. So what did you do? You came back after that with that different perspective. Did it change for you?
Different perspective. That's when I started, different. And then I just started connecting in the community then, getting the right people around me, pitching, learning how to pitch, what a slide deck was. All of these things. Oh, it was hilarious. Like, I just had no clue before that, which is kind of beautiful looking back.
It is. Because you know what? You did it anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done
without
it
a pitch deck.
if I had known what was in store, I probably wouldn't have done. So there is that beautiful naiveness I think is important to taking that first step.
Yes.
Started events, like the tech was just kind of running itself on the side. I wasn't making a huge amount of money, but it was kind of covering itself. People were using it. I wasn't actively out there trying to get new customers and more customers because I knew I couldn't handle it anyway. But it was bumbling along. People were using it. There was enough going through there to justify, okay, people use it. I can see they do this and they do this and they do this. Yep. It's not perfect. But anyway, there's nothing I can do about that now. And I ended up on another trip through, I think it was River City Labs in Vancouver, Queensland, over on a startup trip over there to go and see some potential white label licensing. Yes. Who were interested in using the album registry technology, of which there was nothing there to license at that point. But I went and had this conversation and I won the trip back on the Myriad Air flight.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was really cool because I connected with a couple of guys from Cairns who I knew. But didn't know. I didn't know. And they were doing what were they doing? They were doing a crypto startup.
Yep.
And one of them was tech and the other guy, he was sales, and I'd worked with him in real estate, shooting his photography for years and years and years, like knew these guys, and they were on the same flight. It was so awesome. And then anyway, they decided they shut down their startup, and then the tech guy said, would you like me to build it? And he built it. And
there you go.
It was beautiful.
See, so that is the power of those connections, right? So there was a really interesting time there where we had you bumbling along on your own for so long. Then you went on a trip. Then you connected into the ecosystem. Then you went on another trip, connection with people. Again, you can be living next door to these people, but unless those serendipitous occasions occur, which I think are super powerful for any ecosystem, and I don't really like talking about that word so much, but community, industry, whatever it is, creating those opportunities where people come together and connect at a different level, because that is where you get to align the interests and also make sure that you're on the same page, not just skill wise, but on the same page in terms of what you want to do. So you ended up getting it built. It did work. It was beautiful. You had customers, you were in the growth phase. Then you went to the next stage of looking at, did you want to maybe grow it even more? So did you go and look for more investors, or you're looking for an acquisition? What was the next phase there?
And then I started doing industry events in the photography industry as well. So I would fly to these industry events and then pitch at these industry events, and people would come on board, they'd sign up. And it was really interesting through that, like, again, one of those things that I never thought was going to happen. I thought that this whole thing was set up for weddings, but it was actually ended up being the portrait industry and the baby shower industry that really it took off with. The yield of registries that would go through there was smaller, but they would just click over much quicker. They'd always hit 100%. Money would be paid out, whereas weddings, and I guess what I wasn't prepared for was, culturally, we don't like asking for gifts.
No.
We want them and we expect them, but we don't want to ask for them. And people know, you know what I mean? Like, it's very strange. Whereas around baby showers, there's usually a friend that's organizing it for the friend. They, collect all the money, they bring it in and job's done. There's no, don't have to worry about cultural differences there. So that was really interesting to find.
But I want to talk about that a little bit, because you have a very unique way of explaining to the customer base that we have a problem with that. And you do that through humor, which I love. This is the bit that I get most excited about, because through the marketing efforts of Album Registry, you've got this really unique way of highlighting human behavior through humor by making fun of us. So you did your own ads for Album Registry by highlighting those exact things. Can you talk us through what your approach, because obviously this is what happens in your mind all the time. I believe this is your superpower. But it just happened to come out and show itself in your own marketing efforts. But you created some awesome videos.
Awesome videos. So yeah, funny, it was 2020, that's when that kicked off. And then obviously we know what happened in 2020. The virus came, wedding market got completely wiped out, boom, there was like nothing going through Album Registry at that point. So it kind of wiped me out. But I was like, no, we'll get these baby shit. It'll be fine. Just keep going.
People are still having babies. People are still having babies.
Having babies. So that's when I started some mentoring with you and Aaron. And I started these, I was like, no, I made this commitment that I'm like, I do love making ads, and I do like comedy. And so I started doing one a month. Creating this advertising, and they're hilarious, and they oftentimes would just get shared around, and people would sign up, people would join, and not always equate to money going through, but photographers would come on by the droves by the sign up, and because they were funny, they got shared more, but was usually highlighting our behavior around not printing our photos. I think there was one there, like if
it was cash for weddings, the gift. Yeah, money in an envelope.
When your mum dies and she leaves you her like iCloud login, and then you see weird pictures of your mum and dad together, and like, things that could happen. And I really enjoyed that. And look, did it equate to money in the end? I don't know, but I uncovered the superpower, and I friggin' enjoyed it so much.
Yes. So let's talk about that then, because we went through the journey of having a traditional service-based business. Then an opportunity came up to maybe have a product within that space that became a platform where you sold products, which you thought with the wedding industry ended up becoming just gift registry. In particular, you ended up launching a fintech with a bunch of challenges, but did it anyway. Then the pandemic hit, which wiped out a huge customer base, but that made you then look at other ways to become to diversify the offering and appeal to the market in a different way, and you used marketing for that. But then in that process, you've discovered that you actually like the marketing part and being a creative again with the humor. So then that opened another door into potentially creating content like that to help other businesses market themselves, which then led to where you are now?
Where I am now, yeah. Where am I? I'm here now.
It sounds like a great journey from my side.
Yeah.
But you're in it, like, hang on a minute.
Look,
what is happening next?
Okay. So I made the decision to shut down Album Registry, and that wasn't before I exhausted many avenues at looking at how we could pivot this thing. I think the reality is when you build technology, it reaches a point where it becomes old.
Yes. And
you have to rebuild it. Rebuilding it takes resources. I found myself in a desperate situation again. I was like, oh shit, I can pivot this business. And then I realized, oh wow, it works for baby showers. Maybe we can make it into a group gifting app, or like just a group payments. And then we started going down that road again. And then once again, I found myself in a situation where I needed someone to build the tech.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, I can't do this again.
Yeah.
I cannot do that. And I do not want to do this again. This is not where my heart is. Oh, I love it. I love ideation. I love testing things and throwing it out there, but I guess the actual rebuilding of technology. So I made the decision. I put it out there as a potential sale to a few industry partners. There was interest. That didn't happen. Then I made the decision to shut it down. I sent an email out to say it was shut down, and then 2 people came out of the wilderness saying, would you like to sell it? And then I'm like, oh, shutting down. Oh!
After all this time.
Up and down. And look, that didn't eventuate. It still might eventuate selling the code base, but we've put it to bed. And that was very important. And before I can move on to doing other things where I can create comedy-based advertising for other businesses or for myself, or whether I go down that writing comedy, I needed to be able to put that to bed.
It's really important, the beginnings, endings, transition spaces to move to the next thing, because unless you wrap it up properly and officially like you have, and make the announcements, and even then that brought up new opportunities for you. But I think now you can step into the next phase, and I know that you've been taking some time to work out what that looks like, but do you have so what, how are you going to make the decisions now based on all the learnings that you have? You've built your toolkit, you build up a level of resilience and also resistance, but also been open to knowing that sometimes these opportunities appear at the strangest times. So how are you going to take what you've learned and apply it to whatever you do next?
Look, I think whatever I do next is to, first of all, find the community and surround myself with people who have either been there before or I can tap into some sort of knowledge base there as well.
Yes.
And I do learn things better by being hands-on and screwing them up. But that's often in hindsight. I have been looking at doing a mini series, short film, or even doing a feature film as well, and finding that Screen Queensland and accessing funding to be able to do these things is a very, very similar approach to
it is
startup
amazing.
world.
Yeah, it is.
You have to have a landing page. You have to have a pitch deck. You have to know your market.
Pilot. You have to have a pilot.
Yeah. Right. And to me, and this is maybe the naiveness coming out again, I'm like,
I think, I do believe this is a trait of entrepreneurs is it's like, obviously, if you've had the privilege of having children, you forget the pain because you just go for all the awesomeness that comes with it. And I think it's a bittersweet trait of entrepreneurs is you forget the hard bits very quickly and jump straight back in because the lure of the shiny things or the opportunity always outweighs the painful bits. But hopefully you've learned and you've layered the learnings to build up a level of not just resilience, but also knowledge and experience. I think this is what excites me most about people who are on their, second, third, fourth venture even. It doesn't matter how many. But each time you do it,
you've got to wrap it up when it's time. Like I was in that space for so long where I was like, I could have just wrapped it up and moved on to the next thing. And I think that's just learning how to do that. I mean, I don't know how many URLs I bought in the last 12 months. I'm like, I'm going to do this thing, throwing out a little, questionnaire and then going, I'll just wrap it up. And just wrapping it up. So getting used to it. Just wrap it up. Who cares? Move on to the next thing. I
think, look, the wrap up is huge. And I know lots of people, including myself, who have gone on with things way too long. And all it does is it delays the next opportunity. So I do admire what you did there. And I know it wasn't easy to do. It's also not easy to share, but I also think it's very important.
I forget it now. Like,
the experience and the learnings, which I love. But here's a question for you. In terms of, future skills, like you're a parent, would you encourage your children to be self-employed or follow the path? So what is your perception on the future skills required so for young people growing up and your own daughters, in terms of skill set, requirement, education? Is it something that you would encourage them to do?
Absolutely.
Work for themselves?
Yeah. And I think it was a good thing that I still think that I was a terrible employee. So unreliable. I was unreliable. Like I don't think I was very good. So, but then when I went into self-employment, like you can't be unreliable. If you don't turn up, you don't get paid. I mean, shouldn't have been paid when I was an employee as well. So definitely, I think that it helps with your reliability and turning up, and that I think is a big one. So I would highly recommend doing some sort of venture at some point to learn the skills to sell yourself. And sell your skills, and
back yourself,
back yourselves, and whatever those skills might be. Look, I think a trade is always good, but learn some sort of skill and learn it well to be able to offer that as well. I'm not too sure. I mean, my eldest daughter, she's very, very smart. She's very student. She's like a straight A student. She'll probably go to university. University was never for me. So, but in that as well, like I think learning a skill that you can sell yourself on, I think it increases your reliability
and in terms of anyone else embarking, like what would be, because you've developed obviously as a person, you've had a lot of personal growth in the last few years. What would be the biggest area do you think that you've grown in, having gone through this whole experience of launching, closing,
what I've
growing personally?
Personal growth, definitely personal growth. There's been a big, massive personal
But
growth.
which area? Like what part? Was it your own personal confidence, backing yourself, having a voice? Was it being able to communicate?
Oh, just being assertive.
Assertive?
Yeah, assertiveness is, and I think as females we often go, oh, I can't be like that, because you don't want to come across as look, I think that was something that I definitely had to overcome. It's like, no, this is.
I want to finish that. You said I don't want to come across as, what was that?
You don't want to. I guess
what
I didn't
was that?
come across as aggressive.
Too
much.
Don't want to be too much.
You don't want to be too much. But then if you're not even close to too much, you're nothing. You're not getting there. Yeah, you're not getting anywhere. And for the amount of people that you risk of being too much for, it's worth the risk.
Yes.
Or that small minority of people, or small, or anyone, whatever percentage of people that appreciate you being upfront, speaking and asking for what it is that you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being really clear with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So do you apply that now in other areas of your life? So you knew you had to become too much, like, and be okay with being too much, because that's actually how you express your needs to get them met. Do you apply that in different areas of your life as well?
It's really interesting. I think that with my photography, I was always
yes,
I was very assertive in that and backed myself 100%, but it was kind of in this other area which I didn't understand. But I think yeah, definitely in probably the assertiveness in then having a relationship. I'm married now as well, of not settling. I think that I definitely applied that in as well. So if I'm not prepared to stand up and ask for what it is that I want, then I'll get what I want as well. So I think applying it to that, which my husband very much appreciates that as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Sometimes not. This is what I want, and then
yes.
Being fair.
There's got to be some compromise, right? Obviously, you're in a team. You're in a team. There's got to be some compromise.
Yeah, but no, you don't want to be a pushover as well. So yeah, I think that definitely helped me stand up in that way as well, which was good.
That's awesome. All right, two last questions. I mean, it's been a wonderful journey. We've revisited all parts of the journey. I will never get tired of hearing it, because I love to see where you end up. And as you know, I'm a people person, so the stories are what lights me up. But in terms of travel, I would like to ask you two questions. One is, what is the most favorite place in the world that you've been? And what is the one place in the world that you would love to go that you have not been yet?
Oh my God. One place in the world I love snowboarding.
That you've been to. Snowboarding.
I love snowboarding in Japan.
Okay.
I did about three tours on my own when I was single, and I just adored it. It always felt safe, secure. Everything was organized.
Yeah.
It was on time. And I loved being on the slopes in the cold and in the snow. That's my happy place. I'd love to get there. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes. Maybe take the kids back, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely on the cards. Well, it's direct flights from Cairns here. So
that's good.
Once the world starts kind of getting back on its feet again, that we will be there for sure. Mm.
And where's the place you haven't been yet that you'd like to go?
I'd love to go and travel through Italy with my husband and do his family, see where his family's from.
So he's Italian.
He has, yes. It ties back to Italy there as well. So they've still got family there, and his dad goes back there every year. And I'd love to be able to do that tour with Frank and Jared, before Frank goes or whatever. I think that it's just a beautiful, when you've got history and connection there, like I love that culture, and
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I would, it's definitely a place I would love to go. Italy. I mean, I've been, but to drive through an experience. But I think from the local perspective, if you've got local connections, it's always so much more, unique and special, which is nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it. That's all my questions. I think we've got so much there to listen to, and I really do believe that lots of people would enjoy hearing that story. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last hour.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jannah.
Thanks, Peta.
What a story they always are. I hope you had some key moments where you could take away some of Jannah's learnings and maybe apply them to your own journey, or maybe take them as inspiration that you can also go and start something even when you don't feel you're ready, that you don't feel you have the right help or support around you, but also maybe look towards some of the advice that she gave in what to look for next, and seeking out those communities or the people support networks that could actually reduce the time that it takes to either transition between projects or to wrap things up when they need to be wound up. Sometimes we can't see them. We can't see what needs to be done often when we're deep on the inside. So maybe surrounding yourself by honest people who have your best interest at heart and can help you make those tough decisions. Thank you for listening. As always, please do leave feedback and comments and connect with Jannah. I will drop all of the links on how you can find her in the show notes.